National Operations Branch to really streamline that communication with foreign nationals there in Costa Rica. And when I talk about streamline is I like to compare it with analogy of it's really like going to a theme park and getting a fast pass. You cut the line because you need something expeditedly. And that's really the key advantage with the Marshal Service of having this case upgraded to a major case. That's really the type of division that is in place that was founded in 1985 to really assist Marshals' top 15 cases to where we've been able to also have results on that. So we go back to that model of those assets and those resources, as well as investigators and task force officers that continue day in and day out to work this case for 43 days straight, to where really they forfeited their holidays, their weekends, to really face the challenge and be the difference in bringing Kaitlin Armstrong into custody to where she can face justice here in the future here in Travis County for the charge of murder, and also the warrant that was filed here as well with the assistance of the U.S. Attorney's Office for that unlawful flight to avoid prosecution.
What can you tell us about that fraudulent passport? Was it real, and will anybody else be facing charges in connection to that?
So I won't comment too much on that passport as to what name it was under because it's still an ongoing investigation, and we want to bring those facts that we've learned and that we soon discover more of to our prosecutors in this case. But I will tell you that that passport was a passport that was issued to someone else that was in very close physical description that she used because she looked very similar to that individual. So that was the fraudulent use of it, but it wasn't fraudulent in itself because it was issued to a specific individual. But she used that to board that flight a day after she knew there was a warrant issued for her arrest. But really, I mean, everything in this investigation really came together to really connect the dots to where we have a picture of her today where she'll be, where she's detained in Costa Rica, awaiting deportation back to the United States, where then she'll be handed back over to the United States Marshal Service to extradite her back here to Austin. When we learned about the information, we knew we had to be quick because just like we learned from foreign nationals yesterday evening, is that Kaitlin Armstrong changed her physical appearance just slightly. She cut her hair about shoulder length. It was a little uneven on sides. And she also dyed her hair to a darker brown color. And we were also told that she had some type of bandage over her nose area where she claimed that she had gotten into a surfboard incident here recently. We knew on this investigation that she was that she was frequenting yoga studios to better enhance herself with the profession, where she may have become a yoga instructor here in the near future. So she was getting really ready to establish that next part of her career. But like I said from the beginning, is we knew at that time that she wasn't in custody, but her freedoms were really starting to be restricted. And what I mean by that is she has to lose association with family members, close associates, and really start that new life that she's not comfortable with. And I think that was where it's noted from foreign nationals to where she was arrested at a hostel hotel. Those hostel hotels are really for those individuals that travel independently, and they are there in type of a dormitory housing to where they can communicate with one another frequently. Where you've been, what's a good hotspot to go to, kind of really get the background of the area. Because we know she had a language barrier. She wasn't Spanish speaking. In Costa Rica, there's a lot of Spanish speaking. So she probably facilitated there at the hostel for a lower price to really stretch her money and to communicate with other international travelers, probably some from the United States, that speak the common language. So all those things really had her bedded down in an area where we were able to catch up with her when originally early this week we were approximately 30 days behind her.
So she wasn't laying low, she was out and about in the community. Did anybody recognize her and contact you guys, and will anybody be getting the reward money in this case?
I will say we've probably had over 80 tips in this particular case. Some were great, that gave us a good background. nothing very specific as to where she is currently located at that time. But we will have to look through that. We have another division that collectively goes through those tips to see if someone needs to be paid some type of percentage on a tip. But there was not a tip that specifically said she was at this location. It was really old-fashioned law enforcement techniques that were used to really communicate information to the foreign nationals to facilitate that type of arrest, where she's now being detained on a immigration violation where she used that fraudulent passport when she entered the country of Costa Rica. So, you know, now we'll await her deportation back to the United States.
So what does the extradition process look like now? What's the timeline?
Right now, that's going to be left up to the Republic of Costa Rica. It's going to be up to those foreign officials whether they decide to, you know, keep her in custody there based upon an immigration violation, or are they going to deport her back to the United States. And the Marshals Service International Operations Branch will continue to communicate with that country to facilitate when and where she will be deported back to the United States. When she's handed back over to the United States Marshal Service, then we will extradite her back here to Travis County in Austin.
There's been talk of the death penalty. What charges is she facing right now?
You know, the charge that she's facing right now is for the homicide here with the Austin Police Department and the federal warrant for the unlawful flight to avoid prosecution. That UFAP was filed early on in this investigation when we learned of the travel from the Austin Bergstrom International Airport to the Newark LaGuardia Airport. And we believe that it was a key component to be ahead of the game, because we didn't know at the time when she traveled up to the northeastern side of the United States where she had fled. You know, there was a possibility of Canada. So we wanted to have that resource, that UFAP in hand, so that we could extradite her from wherever she would be back here to Austin, Texas.
I just want to be clear, has anybody else been charged in connection to this case, or at least been taken into custody, detained?
Yeah, at this time, there's been nobody else that has been taken into custody in the pursuit of Kaitlin Armstrong. So if that answers your question.
Questions,
I know, and if you aren't able to answer specifics, that's fine, but originally, when we heard that she was seen at the Newark airport, or heard she had been dropped off, originally it was unclear if she had actually flown on a plane. At what point was that realized that, oh, she did use that fraudulent passport and she did actually fly?
I think early on, when we put that information out, we really didn't know that point of direction. We learned this through a confidential source that we interviewed face to face, and we did not know if she was being deceptive with that person to where she was dropped off at the airport and maybe took some type of transportation outside the airport just to disguise where she'd be going next. But then we learned earlier this week that based upon a search of another individual, we were able to determine that individual's passport was used to obtain a flight from Newark to Costa Rica.
Okay, and made that connection. Again, if you can't answer, that's
Yeah.
okay. With all the way this all worked out, the flight going to New York, flight out of New Jersey, this going to Costa Rica where she has kind of this yoga connection. Does this feel like this was premeditated or planned in some sense, the actual crime ahead of time?
You know, I don't know how much planning she had, but I will say that based upon what we know about this investigation now and what we continue to learn throughout the 43-day manhunt of Kaitlin Armstrong, is she was able to quickly facilitate means to get out of the United States very quickly. And I say that with, a day after being interviewed by Austin Police, she sells that black Jeep Grand Cherokee. She gets $12,200. She obtains a flight out of Austin, goes to New York, stays there for 4 days. As soon as the warrant is issued, a day later, she's leaving the airport with a passport that she's able to come up with to think, how can I get out of the country? And she was successful at that time. But eventually, we were able to catch up with her there in Costa Rica with the assistance of foreign nationals there in Costa Rica, or foreign officials there in Costa Rica. And I mean, that's where we are today. But you have an individual that sells the asset that she has readily available to her. That's the vehicle that is registered in her name. then gets that transportation to New York, fly to Costa Rica, stay there for 30-something days, and disguises her look. She cut her hair, she dyed her hair. She claims she had some type of injury from a surfboard in her nasal area. So all those things that go into play, I mean, she knew she had the warrant, and I'm sure she watched a lot of the coverage that was, presented on or broadcasted on everybody's television in the hunt of Kaitlin Armstrong. So, she knew exactly what was coming her way. We were just, glad that we could safely apprehend her so that all the questions that she has hopefully can be answered in a court.
The last question I have, from what I understand, the town that she was found in, I forget the name.
Santa Teresa?
Yeah, kind of a remote area or a remote beach. Can you provide any more details about how you were able to zone in on that location?
Yeah, like I say, it's old law enforcement techniques. Those investigators here with the Lone Star Fugitive Task Force, the Marshal Service, and other federal, let me redo that one. I don't want to say foreign. Old-fashioned law enforcement techniques that were, discussed and performed amongst the Marshal Service and other federal agencies that were then communicated to the foreign government there in Costa Rica, foreign officials, is really what put us there within that Santa Teresa beach. Because once she got to Costa Rica, she didn't really move around a lot. We knew she was going to be associated with some type of yoga studio. When those foreign officials arrived at that yoga studio, they did find a handwritten login that was the same alias that she was going by when she traveled to Costa Rica. So once they developed that pattern, it really opened up things and really quickly closed in on Kaitlin Armstrong.
As far as a paper trail with that identity, what else did you find?
As far as paper trail, I mean, that was key, that passport to really put us there in Costa Rica with that direction. We do know, too, that they quickly discovered that, Kaitlin boarded a bus from that airport to another known location. So they had a small paper trail that was leading down the road. And I think then once she established some type of pattern based upon her yoga practices, they were able to kind of narrow in that vicinity and just conduct surveillance. And then we knew that, she'd probably be staying in some type of cheaper hotel to really make her money stretch down the road.
What's the name of that hostel?
It's a hostel on Santa Teresa Beach.
Yeah,
I don't know the name of it.
There were a couple, so I didn't know.
So how they sent it to me was what I put in the presser, because I don't even know how to say that word.
Did you say you had been in contact with the actual person who is behind that?
The Marshal Service was in contact with an individual. Yes. Marshal
Is
Service.
that person in trouble?
Oh, like I said, right now, we will take the facts that we have and present those to the prosecutors in this case. And that's all we'll say on that, because I think there's still a lot of answers, or a lot of questions that need to be answered pertaining to that.
Is that the same person who dropped her off at the airport?
Oh, I'm not going to comment on that one. Yeah, because I don't know that one.
Cool.
Want to be caught for a lie.
Good.